Two of Claire's thugs yanked me off the porch and shoved me into the back seat of a black SUV. One was bald, inked from his neck to his knuckles. The other looked like he'd been sculpted out of concrete. Hard edges, no expression. I didn't even have time to tie my shoes. 1 second, I was holding grocery bags. The next, my phone was flying into a ditch, and we were speeding into nowhere, tires spinning dust. We stopped in a barren field, the wind tearing through the silence. No lights, no houses, just me, 2 slabs of muscle, and her. Claire. She stood there like it was a photo shoot, stilettos stabbing the gravel, leather skirt hugging her like a threat, lips the color of fresh blood. In one hand, a fat envelope. In the other, a grin that sliced. "Hey, babe," she purred, like this was some twisted joke. "Glad you could join us. This won't take long." I couldn't speak. Just stared. At her, at the envelope. What the hell is this? She clicked forward, heels cracking like gunfire. "It's a contract," she said. "No divorce. No courtroom drama. You stay my husband. Silent. Loyal. Like a pet." The bald one laughed under his breath. The other flicked a pin from his coat. Claire waved the envelope in the air like bait. "Sign it." And we all walk away intact. I didn't move. My jaw locked so hard it ached. Claire tilted her head, feigning pity. "Come on, Ethan. Don't make this ugly. You knew, didn't you?" She smirked. "You're not that dumb. All those yoga retreats and late-night deadlines?" "Seriously?" She laughed. "God, you're adorable." And she was right. I had known. Somewhere deep down, I'd seen the signs, the unlocked text, the long showers with music blasting like a cover story. Her smile when she thought I wasn't watching. Not at me. At him. At them. But I never imagined this. I thought cheating meant whispered calls, lipstick stains, hotel rooms. Claire wanted signatures. Legalized betrayal. I stood up. The bald one stiffened, ready to pounce. But Claire raised a hand. "No need, babe," she said, almost sweetly. "Ethan's not a fighter." I stared at her. Really saw her. The woman who once clutched my hand through her nightmares. Who sobbed into my chest at her father's funeral. Who said I was her home. Now she was selling off our marriage like an old couch online. And something inside me broke. Quietly. Like a worn gear slipping one last time. I didn't scream. Didn't strike. I just smiled. "You're right," I murmured. "Let's not make this messy." I reached for the pen. Claire's smile bloomed. I took the envelope. She looked like she'd won. I signed. Then I laughed. Loud. Sharp. A sound that made them all flinch. Claire's eyes narrowed. "What's so funny?" I looked up. Cool. Calm. Venom running smooth beneath my grin. "This," I said, "is the part where I get very messy." She blinked. "What?" I dropped the pen. "You wanted a show, Claire? You're about to get a damn masterpiece." That was the beginning. People like Claire think betrayal is the finale. They don't get it. It's just the spark. They think breaking a man makes them powerful. But they forget, when a man's been stripped down, humiliated, heart ground into dust, that's when he stops caring. That's when he becomes something else. So no, I didn't lose it. I planned. I went home that night. Burned, humiliated, and sharper than I'd ever been. I replayed everything. Her lies, the smirks, the rhythm of deception. It all made sense now. The choreography. The script. I didn't sleep. By the time the sun rose, I was dressed and ready. My revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be art. The next morning, Claire left early. No goodbye. Just her heels tapping down the stairs, the front door shutting behind her like the final period in a beautifully crafted lie. I stood in the hallway, listening to the silence she left behind. Same house, same walls, but it felt like a stage now, and I'd been the only one who thought the script was real. Then I saw it. Her second phone, left behind on the kitchen counter like a careless breadcrumb from a predator. She always called it her work phone. Claimed it was for client calls, though she barely worked. Just another lie I'd swallowed, eager to believe. But there it sat, buzzing gently beside the fruit bowl, like it wanted to confess. I didn't pause. I picked it up and typed in the only passcode she'd never change, her dead dog's birthday. Betrayal is pathetic in how predictable it is. The screen lit up. And just like that, I stepped into the filth she'd tried to keep hidden. Messages. Dozens. Men hidden under fake names. Janet Jim, dental office, Steve HR, logistics dressed as lust. One message read, "Your husband's face when we dragged him was priceless." And her reply? "He's like wallpaper." Easy to ignore. Let him rot. My hands trembled. There were photos. Videos. I didn't open them. I didn't have to. The captions told enough of the story. He cried last night. Still believes in us. LOL. Another. He'll sign anything. He's weak. But I didn't feel weak anymore. There was a time she could crush my confidence with a sigh, deflate me with a glance. But reading her real voice, cold, mocking, delighted in my pain, something inside me shifted, snapped into place. This wasn't infidelity. It was a slow, calculated erasure. She didn't just want love. She wanted obliteration. Of me. So I copied it all. Every text. Every timestamp. Uploaded it. Backed it up. Built myself a digital war chest. By the time she walked back through the door that evening, humming like she hadn't just detonated our lives, I knew every alias. Every hotel. Every lie. She kicked off her heels, smiled like sin. You seem tense, she said. Did you think about the offer? I smiled back. Yeah, I've been thinking. She smirked, peeling off her coat. Good. We can be modern. Evolved. Like adults. I said nothing. Just watched her drop her purse on the couch and head for the shower. Her purse lay open. Inside, another burner phone. One she didn't know I'd already found. Another crack in her illusion. She still thought I'd fold. She didn't realize I'd already started to fracture her from the inside. Because this time, I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't scream. That's what she expected. What they expected. No, I would erase her. The way she tried to erase me. The plan was already forming. Silent. Surgical. And every fake smile she gave me from that moment on. Every peck on the cheek. I'd count them, like funeral bells tolling softly for what was about to come. This wasn't marriage anymore. This was a hunt 3 days in. And I played the part she needed. The dull, docile husband. Her favorite puppet. She called me honey, ruffled my hair, vanished for hours. But I watched, tracked, memorized her every twitch, every glance, every message she tried to hide. Mason, Troy, her favorites. 2 gym rats with fists full of dirty cash and veins full of rage. Then came Friday. She wanted dinner. Said it was for old time's sake, with that smug little wink that made my skin crawl. She wore red. She always wore red when she wanted power. So I gave her a show, steaks grilled, wine poured, candles lit. Perfect. She didn't know I'd already read the message she sent Troy an hour earlier. Wish me luck. If he signs tonight, we celebrate at your place. Round 2. I was the warm-up act. The punchline. She toasted to growth. Kept glancing at her phone like she was waiting for applause. Then, out came the envelope. The same sick contract. Her idea of evolution. Let's just end the drama, she said sweetly. It's not about love anymore, Ethan. It's about freedom. Mine. You'll get used to it. Across the flickering candlelight, I stared at her. And my heart thundered. And what do I get out of this, Claire? She sipped her wine like we were discussing dinner plans. You get to stay. I mean, you're the boring stability. That counts for something, right? Something inside me snapped. Not loud. Not angry. Just a quiet tear, like ropes slipping free beneath water. I stood, walked around the table, kissed the top of her head. She giggled, thinking I'd finally accepted it. My place. Her doormat. Then I leaned down and whispered, let's take a selfie. For the memory. She blinked. What? Before she could move, I grabbed her phone. Just one. Humor me. Her face hardened. Ethan, put it down. I smiled, flipped the camera, then accidentally hit the home button. The screen lit up. No password. Just one open chat. Troy. A photo. Claire in lingerie. Taken today. Timestamp. 2:43 p.m. Below it. That idiot husband still breathing? Claire lunged, but I stepped back. My smile gone. You're done, I said. Her eyes widened. It's not what it looks like. I held up the screen. No? Is there another Claire in this photo? Maybe a twin you forgot to tell me about. She reached for the wine, poured herself another glass. Look, calm down. I was going to explain, eventually, but you're being dramatic. You texted the man who assaulted me, I said, voice sharp, and asked if I was still breathing. She shrugged, like I'd caught her lying about dinner plans. I'm tired of pretending, she said. You're weak. I need excitement. These men give me that. You give me groceries. I laughed, one sharp, bitter sound. You know what I finally see? What? You never loved me. You loved owning me. For a second, her mask cracked. Then she straightened. Fine. Be a man for once. Leave. or stay and rot. I'll keep doing whatever I want. I nodded slowly. You'll regret this. Claire raised her glass. Cheers to regret. And drank. But she didn't know that was her last peaceful sip in this house. That's the thing about people like Claire. They think they're untouchable. They think everyone around them is furniture. Rearranged. Replaced. Tossed out. After that dinner, I didn't sleep. I sat in the garage, cold air creeping under the door, scrolling through her messages. Her filth. Her pride. Her carelessness. Then, something odd. A message buried between the sexts and smirking plans. From Olivia. Her sister. The one person who used to call me the good one. It read, Claire, you're pushing it. Mom and Dad don't know what you're doing with the house money, right? What if Ethan finds out? House money? My blood turned to ice. Last year, we'd taken out a loan for kitchen renovations. Claire had insisted on handling the paperwork. Wanted to learn responsibility, she said. I let her. Another blind, trusting mistake. I pulled out our documents that night, dug into the safe, blew dust off files I hadn't touched in years. And there it was. She'd refinanced the loan with forged signatures. My signature. Then funneled the excess into a separate account. The renovations? Cost half what she claimed. The rest? Gone. She wasn't protecting freedom. She was covering up fraud. By sunrise, I had screenshots. Printed records. A quiet storm building in my hands. Then I made the call. Olivia picked up, voice cautious. Ethan, hey, I just need you to answer one question. Honestly. A pause. If it's about Claire. Did she steal money from our joint loan? Silence. Then a sigh. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? She said you knew. Said it was your idea, to help her get the salon investment ready. I closed my eyes. She lies to everyone, doesn't she? Yes. Not just you. I sank into the couch, the weight of it all pressing down. How long? She's been funneling for months. Some of it to a guy in Florida. Troy, I think. Of course it was Troy. Thanks, I said. I'm handling it now. Olivia hesitated. Then, softly, be careful. Claire's worse than you think. She always has been. I hung up and stared around the living room, her living room, decorated with money she stole, with love she faked, with lies spun so fine they gleamed like silk in sunlight. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to burn the stage she'd built while she watched it collapse. I waited until Sunday. Her sacred ritual. Family dinner with her parents. The performance where she played the good daughter, the perfect wife. I showed up uninvited. They were already seated when I walked in. Claire's smile froze. Her father squinted. Her mother smiled, unsure. Didn't know you'd be joining us, Claire said, voice dripping with false sweetness. I set a folder on the table. Thought I'd bring dessert. She looked down. Saw the papers. Bank statements. Screenshots. Transfers. My signature, forged. Her mother blinked. Claire, what is this? Her father turned pale. Claire stood, too fast. Ethan, don't do this here. Why not? I said. You've always loved a public show. She reached for the folder, but her father snatched it up. What the hell is this, Claire? Lies, she said quickly. He's twisting things. He's angry. No, I cut in. This is truth. The same truth she's been hiding while parading as your trophy child. Her father's hand trembled. You forged his name? Claire opened her mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time, she had no script. The drive home was a graveyard of silence. She didn't speak. I didn't either. Just the low hum of tires and the occasional sharp breath from her. Still scrambling, still spinning her web, even now. She stared out the window, arms folded like a sulking child. And when we pulled into the driveway, she bolted, slammed the car door, stormed into the house. I let her go. Let her stew. Let the panic soak into her bones. But I knew her. She wouldn't fold. She'd plot. Sure enough, when I stepped inside, I heard her in the kitchen. On the phone. Her voice low and venomous. He just showed up with everything. I don't know how he got it. But listen, you need to lay low. He might come after you next. She turned and froze when she saw me standing there. I raised an eyebrow. Go ahead. Keep lying. She hung up fast. What? That Troy? I asked. Or Mason? Hard to tell these days. She narrowed her eyes. I'm warning you, Ethan. You don't know who you're messing with. I took one slow step closer. No, Claire. You don't. She laughed, cold and brittle. You think I'm scared of you? You're not dangerous. You're background noise. I walked past her to the living room. Picked up another folder. This one heavier. Photos, chats, GPS locations. A detailed breakdown of her affair with Troy, the roid-raging gym rat who once bragged about snapping me in half if I stepped out of line. I placed the folder on the coffee table and sat down. You might want to take a look at this. She didn't move. I know Troy has a record, I continued. And I know he's still on parole. I leaned in. Calm. Quiet. Deadly. I've got forged documents. Stolen funds. And now a man with a violent history tied to all of it. You wouldn't, she whispered. I would, I said. And I already have. Her face lost all color. The police will go to him first. They always start with the muscle. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her hands began to shake, not with guilt, but with fear. The kind of fear that comes when the crown starts to slip. You wanted to keep me chained while you played house with anyone who could bench press your conscience. You used me, laughed at me, tried to break me. I stood slowly, cold smile cutting through the air. But now I'm the one with options. And then, right on cue, 3 sharp knocks at the door. Claire flinched. I opened it. A uniformed officer stood there, clipboard in hand. Mr. Ethan Walker? Yes, I said, voice steady. May we come in? We'd like to speak with you about a report involving fraudulent loan documents and a known felon. May we come in? I turned to Claire. She stood frozen, hands clenched, eyes wide, panic seeping through the cracks in her perfect posture. I opened the door wider. Of course, officer. Please come in. Claire backed into a corner like the walls were folding in on her. And maybe they were, because one of her lovers was already on the run, and the next? He wouldn't be so lucky. She always thought she was the smartest one in the room. Manipulative, magnetic when it served her, fearless when cornered, like a fox that still thinks it can outsmart the hounds, even with its leg in a trap. But smart people get lazy. They overlook the details, the kind that blow their whole game to pieces. The officers didn't arrest her, not that night. They just asked for a statement. But watching her squirm in that chair while they asked calm, clinical questions about the forged signature, the mysterious transfers, the felon she'd been sleeping with, was sweeter than any revenge I'd ever fantasized. I stayed composed, courteous. The picture-perfect betrayed husband. Claire, of course, tried to spin it, claimed she was the real victim, that I'd manipulated her emotionally for years. She had no idea I'd already filed for divorce. Yesterday, and I'd filed it with a little document she completely forgot existed. The prenup. Back when we were young and starry-eyed, she'd called it romantic. Proof we were marrying for love, not money. I'd agreed. Trusting. Naive. But an old lawyer friend had whispered one line to me before I signed. Add a clause. Something small. Ironclad. And I did. Infidelity voids all asset claims. Not only did it void her rights, it transferred everything back to me. The house. The accounts. Even the business she tried to bleed dry. After the officers left, I sat her down at the kitchen table. Claire, I said gently, remember that prenup you insisted on signing? Back when you were still pretending. She folded her arms. What about it? I slid the original across the table. You should have read it more carefully. She flipped through the pages, fast at first, then slower, slower still, until her eyes locked onto it. The clause. No, she whispered. You can't use this. You tricked me. No, I said. You tricked yourself. You wrote the ending the moment you dragged me into that field and threatened me. She stood up, shaking. You can't take everything. That house is mine. I chose the tiles, the countertops. You paid for it with stolen money, I said calmly. And your name was never on the deed. She went still, then burst out laughing, sharp and bitter, nothing like the flirty giggle she used to weaponize. You think you've won? She hissed. You think waving some sneaky clause makes you powerful? Makes this over. I didn't blink. It's over because you underestimated me. She pointed at me, hand trembling. You're pathetic. You'll always be pathetic, no matter how much paper you throw at me. Maybe, I said, but I sleep alone now, and I sleep peacefully. She stormed upstairs, slamming the door so hard a picture crashed off the wall. I didn't even flinch. Let her rage. Let her spiral. It was too late. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the collapse of a con. She built a life on lies, a kingdom of betrayal. But she forgot to reinforce the foundation. And now, everything she thought she controlled was slipping through her manicured fingers. For days after I showed her the prenup, Claire went quiet. No insults. No smug glances. No late-night calls. She barely left the bedroom, just crept out to warm coffee, then vanished back into silence. But I knew better. Claire didn't surrender. Claire regrouped. And just when I thought the storm had passed, it exploded through the front door. Literally. I was in the garage sorting old boxes when I heard it. A slam that wasn't made for conversation. I stepped inside, and there he was. Troy. A walking slab of rage, sweat-soaked, fists clenched, veins bulging from his neck like a warning sign. And behind him, Claire, standing tall, watching, smirking, like some twisted queen, ready to watch her knight spill blood in her name. You think you're clever, huh? Troy growled, stepping closer, rage simmering beneath his skin. You called the cops on me. Got me looking over my shoulder every damn second. I didn't flinch. That fear, the kind that shakes your bones, I'd left it behind. You assaulted me, I said evenly. And your parole officer knows. You should be in a cell, not my house. He smirked, but his eyes twitched, wild and cornered. You're not pressing charges, he muttered. Claire said you wouldn't. I looked past him, locked eyes with her. Claire lies. She always lies. That one landed. Her smirk faltered. She opened her mouth, but Troy was already stepping in again, jabbing a thick finger into my chest. You think paperwork makes you a man? He hissed. You think your little folders scare me? I looked down at the finger, then up at his eyes. No, I said, but you should know I installed cameras last week. One here, one outside. His body froze. They're recording, I added, tapping my phone in my pocket. One button, and your parole officer gets a front row seat to you violating the restraining order I filed yesterday. Signed, stamped, delivered. Claire's eyes widened. You're bluffing. Am I? I asked. Go ahead. Test me. The air snapped with tension. Troy's fist clenched, knuckles bone white. Claire's gaze darted, calculating, trying to decide who she could still manipulate. Then, Troy stepped back. You're dead inside, man, he spat. You think this makes you strong? Hiding behind the law. No, I said. What makes me strong is that I didn't stoop to your level. You're a threat. I'm just your consequence. He turned, gave Claire a glare laced with betrayal. This wasn't worth it. Troy, don't. She reached for him. He shoved her hand away and stormed out. The door slammed. Hard. This time, it felt final. Claire didn't speak. She just stood there, arms limp, power gone, like a puppet with its strings cut. I poured a glass of water. You picked a man who'd break the law for you, I said, but not one who'd stay when the fun ran out. Her voice cracked. He said he loved me. No, I replied. He loved breaking things. You just handed him the bat. She opened her mouth, maybe to scream, maybe to plead. I didn't care. I walked past her, and for the first time in this long, twisted nightmare, I felt peace. Not silence. Peace. The kind that follows a storm. The kind that hums through the ruins and tells you, you survived. The next morning, Claire sat at the kitchen table, staring into a cup of black coffee she hadn't touched. No makeup, no jewelry, just a hoodie hanging off her shoulders like it belonged to someone else. She didn't look at me when I walked in. So what now, she asked. I poured my own coffee, leaned against the counter. Now? Divorce finalizes next week. House is mine. Business accounts are locked. You'll get your formal exit notice by Friday. She flinched. Didn't argue. Didn't speak. You'll need to be packed by then, I continued. I've already redirected your mail. Still nothing. The silence wasn't sharp anymore. It was heavy. Final. Not from restraint, but because there was nothing left to salvage. All the whispers, all the deceit, all the games, they'd all funneled into this. Two strangers sipping coffee in a home built from lies. I didn't want it to be like this, she muttered. I laughed, dry and short. You wanted a loyal husband while you played queen. You had your throne, Claire. You just never thought it could turn to ash. She looked up, eyes bloodshot, not from tears, from defeat. You think you're better than me? She asked. No, I said. I know I am. Because when I was hurt, I didn't hurt anyone else. When I was betrayed, I didn't betray. And when you had every chance to fix it, you chose ego. Every time. She opened her mouth, ready to lash out, but nothing came. The venom was gone. Whatever fire she once wielded had burned her hollow. I turned, walked toward the hallway. Halfway there, I paused and looked back. You want advice? She didn't answer, just stared, eyes locked on mine, hollow and shining. Next time someone loves you enough to bleed for you, I said, voice steady. Don't use that love to build a lie. Because even the quietest man learns how to burn bridges with a smile. That was the last thing I ever said to Claire. She left 2 days later. No goodbye, no apology. Just an empty closet and a half-used bottle of her perfume, lingering like a ghost too stubborn to realize it was already dead. I walked through every room, opened every window, let the past seep out like smoke, faded, stale, and done. And for the first time in years, I breathed. Deep, easy, free. People ask what I learned. It's simple. Never mistake silence for weakness. Never confuse love with permission. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't beg. Don't fix. Don't wait. Leave. Because men like me, we don't stay broken. We rebuild. Stronger, sharper, and far more dangerous than the ones who grinned while they tore us apart.